pursuant to that request, we have filed a case in circuit court to foreclose on the property to satisfy these liens. In order to give an opportunity to have Mr. Plattner make a request to the city council in the nature of the settlement of litigation, we have not yet served Mr. Plattner with that complaint. So the time clock for that litigation has not yet gone on. Right. But he has, but we do have the opportunity, because litigation has been filed, for him, like in any other lawsuit that's filed, for the defendant to come and make an offer of settlement to the city council. And I received a letter from Mr. Plattner's Winter Park Dodge's attorney with a offer of settlement. I called Mr. Plattner's attorney and suggested to him, as an attorney to an attorney, that I thought that perhaps the amount of the settlement that he was presenting might not be appropriate under the circumstances, and I encouraged him to reconsider and make an appropriate settlement offer. In your packet is a letter that he sent November 20th in response to my suggestion. And let me say to you that there is a statement in the middle of that letter. It says he spoke to me about the previous offer and the expectations of the city. I made it very clear that the city has no expectations, the city is making no demands, and I don't have the authority to even offer a dollar amount, but was simply suggesting what I thought might at least be in the realm of reasonableness for the city council to consider, and not an insult to the city council. The letter that he submitted, and I did not state what, I gave him a suggestion, and I will suggest and tell you that the offer that has been presented doesn't come close to the suggestion. But I'm obligated as an attorney representing the city that anytime that there's a settlement proposal that's made, to bring it to your attention. So it's on the agenda. I'm bringing it to your attention. I do have the authority under state law to ask for a shade meeting, but I don't think that this is necessary. And so it's on the table for your consideration as to whether or not you're willing to accept or interested in accepting the offer for settlement that was received by the city.
I'm not inclined to accept.
I guess I have a question for David as to, I guess, two questions. One is, what did you suggest? And the second question is, why would you suggest when you haven't asked us if we were willing to?
Fair question. When the matter was presented to the Code Enforcement Board, no suggestion was made to them as to what a reasonable reduction might have been. But as an attorney, kind of speculating what the city council, what the Code Enforcement Board might have been willing to accept, particularly if the demeanor of the requester was such that the board might have been receptive to the request. I thought maybe knocking it down by about 75% in the hopes that he'd learned his lesson after all this time, and what would become a productive businessman in the community might have been something that the board would have been receptive to. Again, total speculation. And so when I talked to the attorney, I conveyed to him the same thoughts, but not in any way what the city would consider as appropriate. Just the offer of $5,000 was a slap in the face, and I wanted to let him know, based on my experience, that that was probably not going to be well received by the city council, and therefore gave him the opportunity to reconsider his offer before it went on And that was a professional courtesy from one attorney to another in an effort to, because I don't know what kind of experience he's got with city governments, I thought I might help out to get him off of what I figured would be a non-starter.
Well, I know you represent us, but I'm not particularly pleased that you offered any kind of suggestion as to what a number might be that you could have offered. I'm willing to take it to them, but I am not willing to offer any kind of an amount. For one, I've thought perhaps I would be willing to negotiate something, but quite honestly, when I sit back and think about how long this has gone on, and the fact that we even asked to have him come to a council meeting and speak with us, and he blew us off. And it's like, we don't do business like that. And for somebody who just totally ignores us, I feel that that we have no respect, and this person has totally ignored what we as a community we expect for any business owner. And I'm not certain that, yes, I want to be able to work with people and be flexible, but in this case, I don't know if I'm inclined to offer any reduction.
Gary?
I think it's, as David said, he'd hoped he'd learned his lesson. I think it's obvious he hasn't. I think he's been disrespectful to the city, to the body. This has been an ongoing problem, so I'm even less sympathetic to any compromise at this point in time.
Lynn?
I served on the code enforcement board for 1.5 years just before getting on council. And I found every single person on that board to be nothing but respectable, respectful. They did their job, they did their due diligence, and I have nothing but respect for all of the people on that board. And we gave that gentleman every opportunity in the world to come before the code enforcement board and plead his case. We gave him every opportunity to fix the problem before it got worse. He neglected to even acknowledge any of the correspondence that was sent to him. He never showed up at a meeting. He never replied to any of the requests made by the code enforcement board or the city. The fines kept accruing. They kept accruing and accruing and accruing, and he totally blew it off. City council asked him 1 year or so ago to come to council. He totally blew that off. The fines continued. The property was continued to be left in bad maintenance order. And he still has made no attempt to do anything that complies with any of the city codes that we have. I don't think that this is the kind of person we want operating a business in our city. If that's the way he's going to be, then shame on him. But I am absolutely not in favor of reducing the fine whatsoever. I have no sympathy for this man, especially after he has gone and embarrassed. It's an embarrassment that he offered $5,000 as a settlement when he owes us $119,000. That's ridiculous. It's just totally ridiculous, and it's an insult. We should not even consider it.
Ditto.
You got it.
Seriously.
Yes,
And I think,
Tell me how I really feel, right? But no, I'm really serious. And all of
Yes.
the people on the code enforcement board that are here,
I agree with you, Lynn, as far as the code enforcement board. I think that they've done an outstanding job. They always do.
Yeah.
And they're very dedicated in what they do.
Yeah.
And I've been there in times when they did offer settlement reductions because the
Yes.
people said the right things and acted the right way, and,
exactly.
and that's part of the process, but that did not happen in this case.
The only reason that this guy is doing this now is because he can't do business in Florida because we put a lien on all of his properties in Florida. And he needed money to do something with his bank, and he can't do it because we got a lock on it right now.
That's not our problem.
No, that's right.
You're right.
That's exactly
Our
right.
problem is the lack of respect. I think that there's a very strong consensus that I'm gathering between the five of us, and I think we just want to go forward and foreclose on this property.
I agree.
Agree.
Understood.
Okay, that's all you have?
That's all I have.
Okay. City clerk?
Hey,
Okay, under boards and committees, nothing so exciting. We have several vacancies. We have an unexpired term as an alternate and one for a regular member on the building board. We have an unexpired term on the utility advisory board. 2 3-year terms on the Punta Gorda Isles Canal Advisory Committee, and an unexpired term as an alternate on the Code Enforcement Board. Those are vacancies. Moving on to nominations. We have an unexpired term as an alternate on the Board of Zoning Appeals. We have one eligible applicant. If you'd like to nominate and appoint, you may do so.
Nominate and appoint Mr. Hoagland.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to nominate and appoint Mr. Hoagland. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Carried unanimously.
Thank you. And lastly, under appointments, we have the Charlotte County Marine Advisory Committee vacancy for a city representative. And your voting forms are being distributed.
She has one. I'll keep it. I like to see this.
And Mr. Welsh is the appointee.
Thank you. That's all I have.
Okay. I don't have any policy and legislation. Next week, we'll talk about the tree lighting. I don't have anything. Yeah. Still presentation. Yep, just. Yep, okay, I don't think I have anything under policy and legislation that we know about. Nope. Council member comments, let's start with Jaha.
I want to know if in any way possible, we could do something for the Guitar Army in terms of allowing them to be able to load and offload. Like, is that a viable something that wouldn't mess up our flow? Because on one hand, I want us to stay with our tradition, our new tradition of not parking in the grass, but I think an accommodation for them would be something that's reasonable. So I don't know if there's any way that can be done.
Technically, yes, the bollards can be removed. But I heard council just say, we're staying the course, no parking on the grass. That's what I heard earlier.
I agree.
I would agree if there's something that way to accommodate something like that, but I don't, just to remove the bollards, my concern is it's not gonna be just the people who want to unload, it's gonna be, everybody's gonna come and park on the grass.
All right, so what we're saying really is that if one, in this case, needed to drive to unload, they could, but they couldn't park there. They can't keep their car there. You know, I'm being kind of technical, but you know what I'm saying?
Then you have to go
Crazy.
in, drop it off. I mean, to me, it's almost as if we were going to try to come up with some way to allow something to accommodate, it's almost like we need more of a permanent solution as opposed to just removing bollards. That puts something closer, and that to me says, oh, now we have to design something where a vehicle could get closer just to drop off, but there's no parking space or something, you know, it's just.
They can, you know, there's a roundabout there. And they can park their car at the roundabout, unload their instruments. It's not that far a walk to the pavilion.
No.
It really isn't. But what they want to do is park on the grass.
Park in the grass.
All right,
Yeah.
so I hear you, yeah.
I mean, the park really can't, 1,000 people in that park is a lot. I mean, I know it's an organic grassroots, I love it, but it's a lot to accommodate. So like you're saying, if we did open it up, it would be like it was before.
All right, gotcha. Yeah. Leave it alone.
That's it? Lynn?
Just one thing, I've received a number of emails over the past week, and it seems like they kind of came in a wave. I've had a request from several citizens who would like to know if we can consider looking at the ordinance that exists for the start times for construction in the community. Back in 2006, the ordinance was changed to allow for a lot of new construction after the hurricane, and it was changed from 7 a.m. start time to 6 a.m. start time. And in an effort to be proactive with all the impending construction that may be planned in both PGI and BSI in particular, I've been asked if we would consider looking at the ordinance to change it back to 7 o'clock a.m. for start time for the construction workers, because not only is it 7 o'clock, but it's a matter of they all show up a half hour to 45 minutes before their start time with their coffee and their radios blasting and all this other stuff. And there's a concern that there's going to be an enormous amount of sound and light and other things that are going to be a big hindrance to people's privacy when the construction all starts. So I'm asking for us to consider that at a future council meeting. I'd like to see it on an agenda, as an agenda item. And I will forward the emails that I've received so that you can see what I've got so far. I will send them through Howard. But just something to think about for the future, because before all this construction starts, we should maybe look at it at being proactive rather than waiting for all the complaints to start.
I mean, I just know that our trash collection starts before 7 o'clock, and the reasons are for health and safety of the workers with the heat. I know, with things on the uptick even now, with the lack of workers and resources in this area, you've got to take them when they'll show up. I mean, I think we would be putting, the construction industry at a disservice if we changed it. I mean, if there are issues, maybe like what Jaha was saying, work through the Builders Association. If there's one particular, like you're saying, they're showing up a half hour before or whatever, that could be dealt with on a case-by-case basis. I wouldn't be in favor of changing it, because I know, we've had these discussions about trash collection. Recycling comes to my house at 6:20, 6:25. I mean, they have to get their job done, so I would not be in favor of it.
Well, this would, of course, have input from the building community before we did anything, but I wanted to
I'm
bring
pretty
it
sure I
forward.
know what they would say, but we could ask them.
I'd like to see, if you want to forward the email so we can see what the concerns are, and to see if there, as a discussion, to see if there are options, maybe, I don't know if staff feels first that there aren't any other options to explore, and then perhaps take it to the, discussion here. But I think I would first like to see if staff feels that there are ways that they can help address issues at specific locations.
Well, the reason the ordinance was changed was simply because there was such a huge amount of construction after the hurricane. And it was just maintained at that 6 o'clock, but it originally was 7 o'clock. So I'm just asking for us to consider looking at that at some point in the
So
future.
it had been, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, does that include marine construction? Because obviously, we want to get those guys out there fixing these seawalls as fast as we can. So, I mean, just in that example, if we have to say, no, don't move the barge until 7 a.m., I think we're going to be putting ourselves at a disservice for a couple of people. But send us the emails, I guess. I'd like to read them.
I hear what you're saying, Rachel, but I know, having watched the seawall repair at the house next door to me last summer, they come out early, but they're gone early. So, as far as, by 3 o'clock in the afternoon, they're gone.
Oh, yeah.
So
That's
that
pretty much
doesn't mean that they
standard.
can't just move their day, I guess I'd like to be able to see the emails and see what we can do.
Okay.
Yeah, I think
I'll forward
it's
the
worth,
emails.
it's worth discussing anyway.
Nancy?
Yes, I have one thing, and that is tonight at 6 o'clock is a pickleball lesson for all of us. And so I hope to see you all out at the South County Regional Park with your tennies on, and come out there and have some fun. And the pickleball board is, the Pickleplex board is going to be there with some additional pickleball players and helping give lessons to all of us to show us what this game is all about. So hope to see you there. And bring spouses.
Gary?
Well, with said regrets, I won't make it only because I have to do a ribbon cutting. And I
Anything
might
to-
show up late,
Okay,
okay?
okay.
I might show up late, because first of all, I think what you've done with that whole pickleplex is just over the top, and it's wonderful. I have nothing more to say. I already said my piece earlier on in the presentation with Brad, so I just wish you all a great week, and we'll see you shortly, probably tomorrow night.
Citizens' comments, any topic, please make your way to the podium. You have 3 minutes.
Good morning.
Afternoon.
Afternoon, Kathy Getz is my name. Just a comment, and it just came to me as you were talking over here. We want to make an accommodation for the parking for pickleball. That's a big deal. So that's worth an accommodation and changing the park configuration so we can have parking for them. But we don't want to do that for Guitar Army. I think the pickleball thing, and obviously live there. I do have an emotional reaction to somebody saying, well, the pickleball group donated $3,000, which is an average of $10 per member of the 350-member pickleball club. You know me, I was a dragon boater. When we started a dragon boat club, there were 20 of us. It cost us $25,000 to buy our equipment. We bought our equipment and started the club, and I think that there's just maybe be the whole pickleball is receiving a lot of it's a great thing. It's a great thing. But I'd like to see it when the pickleplex is built, if it ever gets built, because I think it's a lot of money, and it hasn't shown me that the pickleball people want to spend any money. Thanks.
Hello again. Julie McGilvery for the record. Couple of things I forgot last time. When I was out at Gilchrist, I did not see the new city logo appear on any signs, so I think that,
yeah.
so it's probably forthcoming, I'm sure. It would be great to see out there. Also, we talked about the accoutrements and some of the small details, as Gilchrist goes forward, plantings and that sort of thing. And I'd like the city council to consider at a future meeting establishing formally a Parks and Recreation Board. To have something like the other boards, like the Canal Board, maybe 5 members, so some of these details can get ironed out, have citizens input, that sort of thing. So just a thought there.
Thank you. Anybody else? Citizens' comments, make your way.
Good morning, Gary Skillicorn, and I'll be quick. I should say good afternoon. My comments concerning Gilchrist Park. Now, I guess I've had 2 concerns, concrete and parking. But a lot of that's water over the dam right now. But I want to look at the future of the development of the rest of the park. Maximizing parking. I think we all realize that there is a need, but there is a double-edged sword, because when we talk about diagonal parking going down the rest of Retta, it takes up space, it takes up grass, it takes part of, I'm sure 20 feet in, one has to cut for the diagonal. So when you do that, even though to maximize parking, you're losing additional parkland to pavement. We heard today a very strong case from the Guitar Army and what their desires are, and I'm sure this also correlates to the pickleball courts as well too. We heard a statement of maybe attendance of 1,000 participants for a Thursday evening. I guess I would call that surge needs, and is there an opportunity for us to consider the surge rather than to develop parking that doesn't serve a need? Most of the time, if you went down to the park right now, hardly any need for parking, few down there. The majority of the time, 98% of the time, parking more than adequate as it exists. Certain incidences or certain circumstances, the surge requirements. Guitar Army, for example, would perhaps the opportunity is to take the exceptions. Quite frankly, with the parking on the grass, I parked on the grass all the time going down there. It's a wonderful opportunity for the city. Why not allow parking on the grass? I've not seen damage associated with it. Make exceptions so you don't have to bulldoze or move, minimize the park land that you have right now. Rather than the diagonal parking, consider that once in a while situation, open up the gates, allow parking on the grass. Damage hasn't occurred in the past. It doesn't have to happen again. It's a way to solve a problem. Watch the double-edged sword with maximizing parking all over Gilchrist. Thank you.
Last call. Anybody else line up behind her?
Sure. Betsy Toro Blaustein. I'm a volunteer member of the Friends of Gilchrist Park Playground. And regarding the parking on the grass, we feel that once the playground opens, that we don't want our children to be dodging cars while playing in the playground and while playing on the grass as well. We also expect 100+ kids to be in the area playing, enjoying the open green lawn. So having vehicles parked in the grass, against it for their protection as well and family members. Also, we would also like the council to consider or even think about signs stating children playing for vehicles that will be visiting and parking in the area. Thank you.
Okay, seeing no more.
I just have one other thing I forgot to
Quick.
mention, and that was at our break, a resident mentioned that, who's relatively new, that they didn't realize that the parking in Hero Court is free. And so if there's any way to help people realize that it's free parking.
It's free, yeah.
That people don't,
It's free on the yes.
anyway, just
On the sign.
passing it along.
Okay. We are adjourned.
That's awesome.
Howard?